Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. This I guess would be SEC Championship, College Football Playoff edition, and Colts Hate Weekend, all in one, all wrapped into one. All wrapped in. That is Zach Lyons. I am Braden Gall. Of course, we are brought to you here on a football show by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Obviously, two great local and amazing companies supporting everything that we do here. So you guys should go support them. Two-time national champs of Nashville, the Sinkers Beverages, best liquor store in town 2 years in a row, of course, and their sister store, Bluegrass, proud sponsor of Football and Other F Words up there in Hendersonville as well. So make sure you go check that out if you're in the area. You can also search Uber Eats and get everything you need sent directly to your door, Zach.
They drive so you can drink.
That is correct. Okay, so a lot of stuff to get to today, and I guess I should say Kingston Group is pretty awesome too. So let's mention them. They're pretyou good. BuildKG.com, but we'll talk a little bit more about them in just a minute. As we build
a semi-breaking news. If you are ready,
we need a producer that hits like the sounder button here.
Well, here we go. Breaking news: USFL and XFL merger has cleared federal antitrust review. The new entity is planning a 2024 season to kick off March 30th. And you may be wondering, why is that such big breaking news? Well, I mean, you got guys like Malik Willis, Andre Dillard, Treylon Burks, a bunch of Titans that are probably going to find their way there and need that job.
Treylon Burks, huh? I heard you taking some shots at me on Treylon Burks on Football and Other F Words that were factually inaccurate, but it's okay. We got some stuff to clear up.
That's what we talked about. We literally talked about you saying and putting in Treylon Burks as someone that will be in the part of the wide receiver core, and I kept saying, I don't think you can count on Treylon Burks.
No, what I was saying, that's
literally what was happening.
Now misrepresenting me to my face, even fancier, even for you, Zach. No,
I mean, if you want, we could just go pull the clips.
My exact clip, I went back and checked. My exact quote is, "I need to find out if Treylon Burks can stay healthy and can be a contributing member."
I never said that you said that he was going to be good. You said, and it kept including him in the list of wide receivers for 2024, and that's what I was talking about.
You don't think he's going to be on the team?
Well, I think that including him at all as someone that can be counted on in 2024 in any kind of list is ridiculous until he proves us otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with that. I never said that I could count on him. I need him to prove it, and I need to see it.
But when you list him
when he proves
as a part of the Tennessee Titans 2024 plans at wide receiver,
we're off the rails.
Counting on him.
We're off the rails already. I do not believe Treylon Burks has proven it. I do not believe that Treylon Burks has proven anything. He needs to spend the rest of the season proving that he can be a healthy and productive player, and he is going to be on the roster next year. And those are just facts. Like, that's just, some of those things are just facts. So I don't have any personal projection on what he can or can't be. I can't wait to see what he is or is not. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I mean, I've seen flashes of brilliance from him, and I've seen a whole lot of injuries. So you could be totally right. I think there's no way he's not on the team next year. So that's all I'm getting at with that. I do want to clarify a couple of things with the rumors today. We'll get that started very quickly. It won't be very long. Will Levis, how healthy is he? We'll get into that. Again, this is going to be the key in terms of his growth and progression, and this offensive line and this offense is sort of managing, taking care of, learning how to manage things with Will Levis. Looks like he's limping around out there at practice, which is bad news. Obviously, we've got a ton of SEC stuff to get to with Alabama and Georgia matching up. As an Alabama fan, what part is this? Like, it's part 4 in the championship game, but one of those was a Mark Richt 2012 matchup with Nick Saban. They've also played twice in the national championship game inside of all of those matchups. Like, what is this? Is this like, is it just Kirby and Nick? Is it Alabama, Georgia SEC championship game?
I just count Kirby and Nick because I know college football enthusiasts that are like die hard. Everything matters from 1905 to now. They'll include Mark Richt, but that doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things. What matters is Kirby versus Nick Saban.
1905 to 2015. That is a long career for Mark Richt. That's a long career. No,
I'm just saying that in general.
The reason I bring up 2012 because it was Alabama Georgia in the championship game, and I thought the winner of that game was going to win the national championship. That's why I bring it up. And that was Aaron Murray throwing a pass 5 yards shy of the end zone on the last play of the game. And Georgia would have gone on to destroy Notre Dame just like Alabama did in 2012. So I always include that one because this game feels like the winner could go on to win the national championship. That's sort of why I include that one. In just the Kirby Nick SEC championship games, This will be the third meeting, of course, and Nick is 2-0 in those meetings. They're 1-1 against each other in the national championship game, and I believe Nick has his number in the regular season when they had a meeting in Tuscaloosa as well. So either way you slice it, because you can slice it a lot of different ways, it's going to be badass, and I think Alabama's going to play really well. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. And then what does that mean from a chaos standpoint? College football playoff implications. The rankings will come out on Sunday morning, so we might have a little bit more college football flavor on the show today. We do have to talk about the Colts game because it is Colts Hate Week, as you guys like to call it on F Words Pod. Make sure you go check that out. You and Mike Herndon did a great episode this week, and of course stackingtheinbox.com. So quickly on the rumor stuff, I just want to make sure I was clear. I know you and Mike were talking about this a lot on the show. You and I spent a long time on Monday talking about this. I just want to make sure, like, my projections and my predictions different than sort of like the speculations and the rumors. I think it's like a 95% chance that Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon are both back in Nashville next year. And I think, frankly, it would be dumb of the Titans to not bring them both back to Nashville next year when you have a rookie quarterback who needs stability in his life as a quarterback. I think bringing back Tim Kelly, bringing back the coaching staff, Charles London. I know you're very high on his relationship with Will Levis. If this is all about maximizing Will Levis, it needs to be all about stability. So what I think they should do and what I think they will do are kind of the same, which is everybody's coming back. And I think that's absolutely going to happen. And if I didn't make that clear on Monday through a long winding debate about what may or may not be happening or what, I think Rand is qualified. I think Mike is qualified. I think they're both going to figure it out. I think there's a very, very small chance that either one of them is not here next year. That's all I wanted to get. I just wanted to make sure that my point was clear on that. I don't think they're going anywhere. All right.
Well, it's your clarification. I don't know what me do. Say no, you're wrong, or something.
Well, no. Well, I'm used to that.
Your platform.
I'm used to that. but no, I just want to clarify that because we did have a very long conversation. There's been some more information that's come out this week from Kaharski and from a few other people. And I just want to make sure that you and I are both on kind of the same page that it is highly unlikely that Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon are not back next year for the Tennessee Titans. I
know these Bill Belichick trade rumors sure are heating up ever since I said that. There was like 3 back-to-back, like right after we recorded Football and Other F Words.
Yeah.
If that trade goes through, that changes. If Bill Belichick gets traded, that changes everything. I just want to clarify that. Like that, I find it very unlikely that anybody's going to trade draft capital, specifically the Carolina Panthers, going to trade enough draft capital for a guy that could retire on you in 2 years.
Yeah, I think any piece of big changing news changes those percentage points. I think that's pretty common sense, and I think most fans understand that, at least rational ones, I would say. But like if I'm at 95, 96, 98%, everybody's coming back right now. Belichick gets traded, I'm down to about 80%, maybe 75%. The number comes down. So, but not until something changes. So, I just want to make sure that's clear. Okay. Will Levis, the ankles, he's limping around at practice. And I just wanted to ask you, Treylon Burks is back. He's good job by Easton, by the way. I didn't actually know what they were called. I've seen them all year. These little neck things that people have been wearing around their necks. I did not know what they were called. The Q collar. Easton reported this and did the work to sort of dig it all up. And I've seen them all year on a lot of different players. I certainly did not know that it increased the blood flow to the brain to protect the brain, which is kind of cool because I've seen them everywhere. But Treylon Burks is back and wearing one. I
wonder why people don't wear them during games.
They do.
Oh, do they do?
I've seen them.
I don't know what you're talking about. So this is like just me. I don't look at jerseys or anything like that unless you're Leighton Vander Esch or Michael Pittman and you have big glaring, shoulder pads or neck brace or neck pad.
No, it's like it just goes around the back of your neck and it comes down the sides and it's strange because all season
they're wearing it during games.
All season I've been like, what the fuck are those things? And I could have probably just done the work to figure it out. Easton did a good job and figured it out. But it's FDA approved and Treylon Burks is wearing it, so I'm assuming it's designed to. Because I don't know how many people know about concussions and how they work. It's when your brain tissue touches your skull. Creates a large problem. There's fluid in there that keeps your brain from touching anything. And what apparently this does is it's like imagine pumping it up with air, right? And then keep the brain in place more, I guess is kind of the theory. I don't know how a thing around your neck does that, but hey, I'm not a scientist, whatever. But Burks is wearing it, and I'm glad he's taking steps to protect his head because it's 2 major concussions in that short amount of time is very scary. But anytime, any amount of reps he can get back on the field to try to answer some questions about his future is a positive step.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is with Treylon Burks. They haven't really missed him, unfortunately. And like I said, I mean, he's not the only one that has a lot to prove over these last 7 games, but he's behind the 8 ball the most. And it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of ability, a lot of on the field production for me to even believe that there is 0% chance that he's getting cut, because I still don't believe it. I mean, let me say this. 0% chance he's getting cut. I would say a good chunk right now, 30% chance he could get traded.
Okay. I might go with 25, 30%. I might be able to be on board with that. I'm not sure what you get back. His value is at his lowest right now, which is the problem.
Doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter because you're not getting value from him on the field. So why not just go ahead and get him off the team?
I mean, I guess the assumption is that if he gets healthy and he plays a couple of good games and you want to trade him in the offseason, that maybe his value goes up if you can figure that out, and maybe that helps you win a game or 2 down the stretch. So we'll see. Maybe. Will Levis is obviously the far bigger concern, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. You can't really break a quarterback physically. Joe Burrow tore an ACL and came back and then he got sacked like a gazillion times his second season and still ended up going to the Super Bowl. So even though he's hurt, it's not about, you don't want to make it any worse, obviously. How are you handling the Will Levis situation? What is there a percentage where you would put him on the bench, bubble wrap him where he's not healthy? Like, what's the just play him no matter what?
Unless he has a season-ending injury, his ass is playing.
Okay, there you go.
You don't coddle your quarterbacks. Let him play. And if he gets injured more, he gets injured more. This man has played through injury before, so he can do it. At this point, it's the responsibility of the team to make sure that his reps and everything that he does in practice promote his health and availability on Sundays. And it's up to him to be doing stuff on his own in rehab. This man's got to play. There is no coddling, no bubble wrap for a franchise quarterback. If you start getting in the habit of doing that and him losing valuable reps because you're sitting him on the bench and you don't trust him to stay healthy or to fight through this or anything like that, that says really more that you don't have a franchise quarterback. That's just where I'm at. Now, if he's like legit injured, if it's just my ankle's a little tweaked or something like that, or, if it's a legit big injury, then yes, obviously it's better to maybe rest him for a week, declare him out. But if he is good enough to throw at practice, good enough to run the offense, you got to play him.
Yeah, I do think that's ultimately what I'm getting at, is if it's a real injury and it can be damaged worse, and then you get no more reps. But if you rest him for a week, then you could get more reps. Like, to me, it's all about the risk reward of making sure you get as many reps, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's one of those injuries where it might get hurt worse, because again, we've seen the Titans quarterback deal with ankle injuries before multiple times. It's like deja vu all over again, because we saw Ryan Tannehill try to play through it and it got worse, and then it ended up costing him the rest of the season multiple times. Not multiple times. Rest of the season last year cost him this year, and then his job was over. He lost his job. So
I mean, it just depends on what the severity is. We don't know what the severity is. So if it's severe enough that it's a high risk of injury and severe enough that it could derail his entire season, then sure, maybe if you think it's going to get better. But if you're resting him for the rest of the year or something like that, waiting for him to be 100% healthy, I'm out. I don't know. I'm just at that point where it's like, you either have a franchise quarterback or you don't, and you got to treat him like a franchise quarterback. No kids' gloves.
They're football players. They're football players. Nobody should be healthy in December of a football season. It's just not. Nobody's 100% at this time of year. So I do agree. Perhaps that might be a reason to speed up the offense, throw a short passing game, maybe get Tajay Spears involved. They did a pretty good
job last week. That was their highest percentage of passes that were under 2.5 seconds.
So there you go.
So that was really good. Last week was their highest percentage.
Tim Kelly, friend of the pod.
Yeah, friend of the pod, subscriber to StackingTheInbox.com.
Friend of the show, Tim Kelly. If you have any questions, of course, jump into the comment section. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Share the show. Give us a subscription over there on the 440 Sports YouTube page as well. If you listen to this in podcast form and or any other way, you may find us on Twitter or Facebook. We do appreciate it, but head on over to YouTube and give us a subscription there. We would really appreciate that. Of course, make sure you sign up, stackingtheinbox.com as well. No kid gloves, no bubble wrap for Will Levis. I agree. If you think it can get damaged worse and cost you games, that's where I start to get kind of like, err on the side of making sure you can get Will Levis as many reps as humanly possible. I think that is ultimately the goal. When it comes to the Colts, Zach, and Kingston Group is our proud sponsor, buildkg.com. Of course, they just go check out their socials. You can see their work. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. Call them, have a conversation before you buy or sell a house, before you do any major renovations. They will absolutely talk you through it. They'll handle the process, and whether they help you or not, you guys know the drill. They will absolutely take care of you. So Kingston Group and how we build a win against the Colts. This was the first time in I want to say 18 or 19 games that a player went for over 100 yards rushing. Zach Moss absolutely dominated this team, the Titans, up in Indianapolis a few weeks ago. This was Anthony Richardson's last start of the season. He did start that game. Then he got hurt. Gardner Minshew came in and has been playing fairly well. Kind of a different offense with him in there. Jonathan Taylor with thumb surgery is out, of course. So Zach Moss back in. Big difference, though, this week, Zach, could be TR Tart. It could be in the lineup. He did not play in that game. Also, 100% of the snaps at left tackle last week, or in that game, Andre Dillard. I doubt that happens this week. So a few changes for the Titans. Number one, they're at home. And number two, both lines of scrimmage could be in a better situation for this game than they were in that game.
Yeah, I got three big things that the Tennessee Titans have to do to beat the Colts. And since you're already talking about the defensive line, that is obviously every week the offensive line just has to not suck. That's like a tenet of every victory. Just don't suck.
It's a reoccurring charge.
Yeah, but this one, since you're talking about the defensive line, you just can't let Zach Moss beat the shit out of you again. And even Mike Vrabel said that, Zach Moss should be licking his chops in the presser on Wednesday. And because after facing them and him going off, like you said. But let me say something. Here's some good news for Tennessee Titans fans and some good news for you stat nerds and preview nerds that love this kind of stuff. Surprisingly enough, last 3 weeks has seen the Titans run defenses back to 2022 form, having 3 games, and these are the first 3 games where they've had total 20-plus run stops in each game. 20, 23, and 20, dating back to Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, and Carolina, 20, 23, and 20 run stops. They faced during those attempts of 29, 36, and 18. And so, they are stopping runs. And I don't think that 18 is right. I think I accidentally typed something different. But they've only allowed rushing yards of 42, 92, and 80 through that time. And from weeks 10 through 12, allowing the third lowest EPA per play and lowest success rate on runs. So they're back. That run defense is back these last 3 weeks. You look at the video, you look at the stats, the advanced stats, box score stats, they are back. And just so you know, for comparison, weeks 1 through 9, they were 22nd in EPA allowed per play on runs and 19th in success rate. So they last 3 weeks, 3rd and 1st, they're the top 3 in EPA success rate, and they were in the bottom half of the league weeks 1 through 9. So this is an entirely different run defense. Tier Tart is back. They brought back Jaleel Johnson for a reason and signed him to the 53-man roster, which has to be very awkward for him. But other than that, this run defense is back. It's ridiculous. And let me say this just real quick. Azeez Al-Shaair had over 10 run stops, just run stops, in his game against the Colts in week 5. and he is playing better than he ever has at the beginning of the year. This whole defense is playing better against the run than they have in the year. This is one of the you have to stop Zach Moss.
So you said this on Monday, and I agree with you. You said it again on F Words, and I agree with you. Carolina is not a get-right game, like meaning you solved all your problems. I think it's a function of Carolina being among the worst teams in the league, if not the worst roster in the league. Tampa Bay is one of the worst rushing teams in all of the NFL. 77 yards for Tampa. Jacksonville, Tennessee was good on a per snap, per carry basis. To your point on all those stats, they gave up 130 yards rushing in that game, but again, they were very good on a per carry basis. Do you think it's more of a function, and this is an honest question, do you think it's more of a function of the competition because the Jacksonville game was out of hand and you knew they were just going to hand off and the Titans could load up to stop that? And then the other two games, Tampa Bay and Carolina, are terrible at running the football. Is it a little bit of both here, a little bit of the competition as well, or is it just T.R. Tart's back to form?
Well, that's why you got to include EPA, right? Because EPA is a historical function of like, okay, at these point in times during the game, this is how EPA works. At these point in times during the game, from a historical context, dating 10 or 20 years. I mean, they just keep updating EPA. Are you gaining the expected points that you should be? And they are allowing the least amount of expected points in the negatives. So even with the talent, even with the game situations that you're talking about, garbage time and all that kind of stuff, they're still allowing all that. So
why? What's the difference then? Do you think?
I think the difference is the team. I mean, I think that the team is just playing better than what it did at the beginning of the year. The big theme of the week at the press conferences had from the players and from both the players and the coaches that they've kind of started simplifying things on defense. And I think that there's a lot of new players on defense, like Azeez Al-Shaair, Sean Murphy-Bunting. T.R. Tart has been working through injuries. Arden Key has kind of disappeared. But I think there are guys on this team, they've gone through a lot of change. And so sometimes we talk about the offensive line taking weeks to gel and build chemistries. I mean, when you got a bunch of two new inside linebackers, let's just be honest, Jack Gibbons is new. When you got those two guys as your starting linebackers, when you have a new addition in Arden Key, Harold Landry coming back to form, you got Eric Garror in and out of the lineup, you got Elijah Molden coming back from injury, playing a new position. When you got all this stuff happening, it may take time for the defense to gel. And I think that when you look at this run defense, I think they are opening up more lanes. I think Jeffrey Simmons is playing like a man possessed. That may be one of the biggest differences is that Jeffrey Simmons, how many weeks in a row now have we talked about Jeffrey Simmons being the only good player that Tennessee Titans have had these last 3 weeks? Because there was a time in the middle of the season, he wasn't doing that good. Yeah. And we have to be honest. Now, he was still doing average, NFL defensive tackle average, maybe slightly above average, but he wasn't the game wrecker that he was in the middle of the season that he is now. And I think when you take all this stuff and combine it together, that you are looking at a defense hitting a stride at least as in the run game.
Could this be the proof of concept moment for all of that? Like, hey, we simplified things to speed it up. We've got some players that are starting to find their fit in the defense. Guys alongside Simmons are starting to play a little bit more consistently. T.R. Tart's healthy. You start putting that all together. Like, isn't this the kind of proof of concept game? Like, you're not on the road, so you don't have the road excuse, which I think is a dumb thing anyway. I think it's more of a I don't know why.
I think if you're on the road 3 games in a row like they were, then I can see that. I mean, I can see that, but like just going from like, oh, we're playing at home 1 week, then turning around and going to an away game the next week. That doesn't really make sense to me. I agree.
Right.
I just think it's a traveling thing.
Well, and I would argue, like, again, you lose to the Steelers because you're starting a rookie quarterback on a short week. I think there's more context to the road home thing than just like Nissan Stadium and not Nissan Stadium. And Nissan Stadium hasn't exactly been packed and full of fans in a rowdy, dangerous atmosphere. Point is like you don't have any excuses really, because if you're playing your best football of the season, you're going up against a pretty decent offensive line that's run. Now, there's no Jonathan Taylor, but Zach Moss crushed you earlier, and you're kind of at home. If you still get crushed again, it sort of discounts all the goodwill that you've built up over the last 3 weeks, I think, is what I'm kind of trying to get at. Like, this is proof of concept for the defensive line and the defensive front is to say, look, all that stuff you just laid out, it's real. and we're going to show up this weekend. I know you guys talked a lot about the offensive line on F words, and I don't want to just sort of like negate it, because to your point, it is just they're not very good, and they've got to do something for the Titans to have a chance to win, and that's sort of baked into every conversation. Do you feel like you've got a set group for the rest of the season that you want to see now? Like I know we
absolutely,
and Raden's not at tackle.
No, I mean, Hubbard's not playing, so I mean, you asked if we have a set group, and you do. Like, just play this group. I mean, I don't care about Hubbard. I don't think it's that big. It's not that big of a drop off. Just play these 5, barring injury. Roll with it, and then let's just see how it all shakes out for these next 7 games.
I like the thought of the staff all along knew Dylan Radins was a guard. That's why they slotted him as a guard, and they were working him as a guard. And sure, maybe he needs to be the tackle for the rest of this particular stretch of games because he's better. My question is, do you think he can be the follow-up plan to Daniel Brunskill whenever that time is? Do you think that that's how the staff
Absolutely
views
not.
him, or no? Okay, all right.
No, he's not good. It doesn't matter where you play him. You know, he gets the benefit of, you know, when he was at left guard, he got the benefit of playing against Andre Dillard, who fucked up a lot. So everybody's picking on Andre Dillard.
We all look good next to Andre Dillard.
Yeah, right. So, but when you really start looking at the tape, he's not that good. I mean, he's a better guard, but he is your Dennis Kelly, better than Jamarco Jones utility player that can come off the bench and play in a pinch. He's not a. He could start for the Carolina Panthers at guard and probably at tackle as well, but there's not going to be, when you look at a fully healthy starting 5 offensive line in the NFL, I'd be hard-pressed to put Dylan Radins as the 6th guy and say, hey, go out there and beat and find yourself a starting spot on this team, and him be able to do it. Because he's never been able to do it. You get what I'm saying? Like, we have seen proof of concept. Yep. You talk about proof of concept, you know, for this game in the run defense. We have seen proof of concept that the Tennessee Titans 100%, that coaching staff, the scouting staff got it wrong, but the coaching staff got it right, that he is a guard, but he is not a starting offensive lineman in this league for 17 games of a season.
You tweeted this out, and I think it was a couple of days ago, early in the week, with some advanced metrics on the offensive line. You basically said Sunday was the best from a raw number standpoint, metrics data for the offensive line, that it was their best showing of the entire season. Is it reasonable for fans to expect that level of performance, or is that Carolina? I mean, Brian Burns is a pretty good player.
I mean, Carolina's pretty good, right? Like, I mean, Derek Brown, Brian Burns. I mean, they're not I can't pronounce the linebacker's name, but he was flying all over the field. They're not a team that lacks talent on the defense, right? I mean, ultimately that's what I'm trying to get at, is like,
right.
They're not a team that lacks talent on the defense. They're a team that lacks talent everywhere on the offense. Like, they just don't have hardly anything. But, you know, you're talking about Derek Brown. Shy Tuttle's no slouch. His name was called a few times as a nose tackle. Brian Jones, Frankie Louvu. That's who I was trying to think of.
It's got a weird last name.
So, like, to me, they're not a team to be taken lightly as a defense. Now, do I expect them to go up against DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Grover Stewart, all these guys that they have on this team and do the same thing? No. But do I expect this offensive line to be better than the week 5 offensive line? Yes.
Yeah, I think
that's what I'm setting my bar at better than week 5, but not as good as week 12, if that makes sense.
I have no effing clue if they're going to win the game or not. I could see them playing well in this game because Vrabel at home, Colts rivalry, etc. But I think that's actually a smarter way to look at it, because there's a Levis analysis that always exists over priority over everything. But I do think, like, if the offensive line is
not too bad, right? Like,
no,
your backup
not at all.
Was Ryan Tannehill, so if he
no, exactly. If your offensive line is better than they were against the Colts a month ago, and your defensive line is better than they were against the Colts a month ago, that might be the way I define success outside of a victory. I mean, if you're just like, take the score.
They allowed 0 sacks in week 5, but they allowed 17 pressures in week 5.
I almost spit my coffee out.
So I mean, when you're talking about having 39 dropbacks and you're allowing 17 pressures, that's still not a good game. Now, 0 sacks, so this is great, right?
Right.
No, that means your quarterback wasn't, put on the ground. And it's all about the hits that you take too, like the kind of hits. There's sometimes you just get kind of like a push, and that's a quarterback hit, right?
And
like,
they ran the ball for
sacks and hits. Yeah, are made created equally, but 17 pressures, 12 quarterback hurries against Ryan Tannehill. So that is like. You want to walk away with 0 sacks, right? That should be your goal, because if we're going to say you have to be better than what you were at week 5, you want 0 sacks, less than 5 quarterback hits, and less than 12 quarterback hurries. Like, that is your bar. It can listen. It could be 0, 4, and 11, as long as it's still better than what you faced last in week 5. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great way to measure success, is the 2 lines of scrimmage are better than they were in this game. They only had 89 yards rushing as an offense in that game as well, just as 22 carries for 89 yards. So can they do better than that on the ground as well, which certainly is going to be a part of the equation. So I think that it's the lines of scrimmage. I don't know what to make of the deployment of the skill players. I don't know what to make of the secondary. I think we kind of know what those 2 groups are at this point, other than I don't imagine Treylon Burks is playing or using a whole lot, but maybe he is.
I don't. If he does, what's the point? Here's my other big take. I got 2 more big takeaways, because mean, my big takeaway was really about Zach Moss. You got to contain Josh Downs, and you allowed 4 first downs in week 5, 6 for 6, 97 yards, 47 of which were yards after catch. So here's my plan to contain Josh Downs. McCreary stays healthy, stays on him when he's inside the slot. McCreary only allowed 2 for 2, 19 yards, and because most of his damage came either against Jack Gibbons, who somehow got on him, or the outside. That's where the damage came from, outside against Christian Fulton.
Wasn't there a busted play?
Well, I'm sure it was, because Christian Fulton doesn't know what he's doing half the time he's out there. So, but I mean, and let me say this: Josh Downs is a busted coverage merchant. Like,
yes,
that dude, he's good, but he takes advantage of every team that I see that he gets the big gains on, major busted coverage. Because here's why. So when if he's lined up on the outside or in the inside, they have to press him. And that means they, as in Roger McCreary and Sean Murphy-Bunting, because I have a special assignment for Christian Fulton. That is not facetious or joking in any kind of way.
Okay.
Because right now, Josh Downs hasn't been forced to make many contested catches. But when he does, he's catching only 37.5% of the contested catches. So you got to get up on him in man coverage. On top of that, he's only been targeted in man coverage on the season at a 33.3% rate. So not a lot of teams are playing man coverage on these receivers, specifically Josh Downs. The Colts also in man, his reception percentage drops. It drops from 73.2 to 60.9. So that is a big drop in reception percentage in man coverage. So you got to be in man coverage. And what I mean by that is that Christian Fulton has to be in man coverage. Fulton can handle Pittman. There's no doubt in my mind that this is Fulton versus Pittman is one of the best matchups for Christian Fulton that he'll ever see in his lifetime. And there have been 8 games. He's played 7 games versus the Titans. Michael Pittman has. Pittman only has 2 receiving touchdowns in 7 games. Those 2 came in the same game in week 8 in 2021 when Christian Fulton was out. Other than that, Christian Fulton versus Michael Pittman, 2 for 3 for 31 yards, 1 for 1 for 7 yards, 0 for 2 for 0 yards, 0 for 2 for 0 yards. In the 4 games that they have played against each other, we're talking 3 for 8 for 38 yards. Christian Fulton on Michael Pittman. So S&B can handle Pittman as well, but to prevent seeing Fulton on downs, Josh Downs, the Titans should just let Christian Fulton follow Michael Pittman around the field. That solves everything.
They don't do that
for your defense. That's the easiest thing.
They don't do that a lot, though.
They don't do that a lot, but this is the game to do it in. This is such a simple game plan.
I do agree. I've always liked Michael Pittman slightly more than you just in general, but I do agree that Fulton and his skill set is a good matchup for Christian Fulton. I agree with that. And Downs, again, with his speed and size being very small but very fast, that's your risk of rolling up coverage and playing man. Is if he beats it, you could be toast. But
that's why I think only Fulton needs to play man. Like if Downs goes on the outside, SMB on Downs.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I think Sean Murphy Bunting and then roll whoever you want to over on Downs, because Michael Pittman's not a burner. Christian Fulton, Michael Pittman, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Leave it open. Leave them on the whatever side they're going to be on. One-on-one. I don't care. Just please, for the love of God, do not put Christian Fulton on Josh Downs. Christian Fulton, Michael Pittman.
No, I agree, Stoney. Shane Bowen's already drawn up a play for Harold Landry to line up on Michael Pittman. The only thing that would have been funnier is if it was Harold Landry lined up man-to-man on Josh Downs. That would have been funnier.
Yeah. My other big thing is just penalties. The Titans have now 19 false starts, 10 offensive holding penalties. That the league average of both of those is 12.94 and 12.75. I mean, they're way above the league average, and they don't benefit from them. They have a beneficiary rank from offensive holding and false start, and they're the last team in false start, meaning they don't face a lot of teams that get a false start call, and they're 30th in offensive holding. They have 8 defensive pass interference calls, 6 defensive holding calls, both above the league average of 5.97 and 4.09, and they mainly come on third downs. Just please, for the love of God, Dylan Radins, I'd rather you be late than be early at this point coming off the line. And Christian Fulton, you can handle Michael Pittman and not get a defensive pass interference.
You can't have self-inflicted wounds, pre-snap penalties. You can't do that stuff and try to win a game where a team is just better than you. Like the Colts are just better. They're significantly better than the Panthers. So you cannot expect to play the same second half offense that you did last game and expect to win. You're not bracketing Adam Thielen in this game. You got way more dangerous weapons to deal with than that. It is lucky that Taylor is out, and they've kind of hit some weeks this year where they've missed the top guys on these other teams. It hasn't really mattered. They've lost a lot of those games. So Zach Moss was great. Jerome Ford was excellent. Like you can go down the list of teams that lost their top running back for the game against the Titans and still ended up winning the game. Not with relative ease, but just, you know what I mean? So I'm fascinated with Duncan again. I think he's a top priority to watch. I think Will Levis, top priority to watch. I want to see again how they just deploy some weapons. But again, Levis on third downs, he was terrible in the second half against the Panthers. I want to see better decision-making and accuracy on third downs. But really, I think you're right to say, look, if the offensive line is better than it was in that game previously, and the defensive line is better, and they lose the game, you can at least point to progress and to answering some of those questions. So,
and I think a lot of the third down issues is because they're not in favorable third down matchups because of penalties on first down on offense. And really, if you flip it on the defense and their third down issues, it's because of penalties on third down that the defense caused. So, like, if you clean up both of those, first down penalties on the offense, third down penalties on the defense, you're talking about entirely different outcomes for some of these close games.
Zach, are you suggesting that if you go backwards before first down, that it decreases your success rate of the drive?
Yes.
No way. No fucking way.
Especially if you're the Tennessee Titans.
Holy shit. Okay, Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group are 2 great sponsors. Make sure you check them out. StackingTheInbox.com as well. Football and Other F Words and all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. You guys know the drill. Support all those great companies and all those great shows. So we do appreciate you guys. Not as much Titans talk today on the show because it's a huge weekend in college football. We have an SEC championship game that I think could be pure spectacular football. I do have one question for you, though. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, and I wanted to spring it on you and get your honest response. You got to put your Bama hat to the side because you don't qualify as this person. So maybe those of you in the comments can chime in as well. For the neutrals, I'm asking this question for the neutrals. Who are you rooting for? Because Bama has been the Death Star, the evil empire, Darth Vader, whatever you want to say, for 15 years. Georgia's the 2-time defending champs with all the off-the-field stuff that happened the last 2 years. Nick Saban's the likable, airy grandpa this year. Jalen Milroe's extremely likable story and character in this college football season. But people see the script A and have a visceral reaction to the script A. I'm not sure they have that visceral reaction yet to the G just yet. I'm curious what you think. Who do you think the neutrals are rooting for in this situation?
I don't know. to be honest, because here's my pitch. Here's my pitch of why you should root for Bama. Because obviously Bama is not the powerhouse it was, several years ago when it was just going on tears all the time. They're a flawed football team, and probably with NIL and Texas entering in, Oklahoma entering in, recruiting and all that kind of stuff, they'll probably continue to be somewhat of a flawed football team. They won't be at perfect. Georgia, however, has through all this has been a near perfect football team. So wouldn't you rather kill down the new empire before it takes hold? That's my thing.
Like, no,
let's kill Georgia now.
I agree.
Take Georgia down a few pegs and then bring them down with everybody else. Because it really, when you talk about it, it's like Georgia right now, until proven otherwise, is up here in talent-wise. We're talking a couple levels up. Then a couple levels down, you have like Alabama. Then like one slightly lower level down, you have LSU. And then a couple of rings down, you have Tennessee, Texas A&M. Then a couple of rings down. Let's bring Georgia back closer to the LSU and Alabama's to make this a little bit more interesting in the way, because then you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma added in to make kill the empire before it starts. Don't you think Luke and Han and Leia would want to go back in time and kill Anakin before, or try to convince Anakin not to be who he is? Like, don't be Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And so now is the time to strike to prevent the new empire.
So I see that argument. I totally see that argument, because personally, because I'm so close to the sport, I think this Alabama team is more likable. I agree. I just think they're a more likable commodity than Georgia. But I can remove 25 years of watching and suffer. If I'm an LSU fan or a Tennessee fan, and I'm a neutral, right? I'm a neutral observer. I can see how much hatred you've built up for Alabama, that it's just not quite there yet. We're like, this is like Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader and Death Star for Georgia, whereas this is like Rise of Skywalker over here, like with Alabama. And it's just been ingrained. The war has been going on for so long that I think people are still going to root for Georgia. But I agree with you that Georgia, like, never before has a team gone 3 consecutive seasons going undefeated in the conference. Georgia just did that. It's never happened before since 1992. When they split and when they went to divisions. They're on what, a 31 game winning streak? Like, we're entering some rarefied air with how many games they've won in a row. I think that like Georgia they're the most NFL football team in the sport right now. They have an offense that is run like an NFL offense. They have a quarterback that runs it like an NFL. They are a balanced offense with an NFL tight end, NFL scheme, NFL receivers, NFL offensive line. Like, everything they do. Like, Alabama kind of runs more of a college-ish type of offense because Jalen Milroe is a college quarterback. And that, to me, is more charming and more likable. I agree with you, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think people are...
probably not, but it would be wrong for people to root for Georgia, because I see, like, keep leaning on Saban, hope for an earlier exit. I mean, that's a lot of hope. You can hope that all you want, but at the end of the day, Kirby is the new Saban. So let's take down the new emperor. Take down the new emperor before he gets all the power.
He's shit. Why am I drawing a total blank on the brother of Ray? Who's Ray's brother? Why am I drawing a total blank on his name?
Oh, Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. Like, he's Kylo Ren is what he is.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, my bad. All right, it's been out for years. I'm not going to be too upset about it.
Yeah.
But, like, he gets another spoiler alert. Like, he flips, right? Like, you got to flip him, and before he turns into Palpatine, and that's what Kirby Smart is doing, right? Like, Kirby Smart is Kylo Ren. You got to. We're gonna land this analogy fucking somehow, and he's this close to turning into like the evil empire who's going to dominate the entire world. So I agree with you. I think Alabama shutting down Georgia also leads us into our playoff implications conversation, which makes it super, super complicated. If Alabama wins, it turns into total chaos on Sunday for the playoff rankings. Now, I like Bama +6, personally. I think Alabama's going to...
Bama +4.
I had him at Bama +4. I bought him again at Bama +6.
So
Bama
I like 6.5 right before we came on. I checked.
It was 6. It was
trending the wrong way.
It went up to 6.5.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Are we building a win for the Colts and the Titans again?
Sorry. I thought I clicked something different.
Here's the thing. Peyton Thorne for Auburn, 12 carries, 92 yards. Brady Cook had like 7 carries for like 57 yards for Missouri. You look at Jackson Dart, and you can look last week at Haynes King, who scored 2 rushing touchdowns. All 4 of those guys play what positions at? Quarterback. Jalen Milroe is the best athlete they will have faced at that position, and that is what has been successful against Georgia, is running the ball on the edges. Can Alabama do that? On the other side, it is all about pressuring Carson Beck. If Carson Beck sits back in the pocket and can run the offense like an NFL quarterback, Alabama's secondary will make plays. They will give up plays. So I think that's ultimately the 2 biggest things: Milroe's legs and pressuring Beck. If Bama can do both of those things, Bama can absolutely win the game. And the question is, do they get into the playoffs?
Right now, you're seeing, in my opinion, at this point in time, 2 of the top 5 teams in the nation. I think the most talented teams, the best teams. I think you'd have – I get that they have a loss against Texas, but you have to look at it in a different view. This team right now, this Alabama team now versus what it was back then, is an entirely different beast.
Yep.
And
they're the most improved team in the entire country. Fully
agree. And I think it's a little weird that Florida State is still ranked that high without Jordan there. So we'll see. I think that feels like a little bit of a mirage almost. But I think that right now you're seeing this is the best championship game. Maybe not the most exciting championship game, but I think this is the most talented 2 teams in a championship game this weekend.
Oh, not close.
I would say Oregon versus Washington is probably going to be the most exciting game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you're talking about the 2 best teams playing against each other with NFL level talent littered throughout the entirety of both rosters, this is the best game.
And it's why I include the 2012 one as part of the conversation, because those were the best 2 teams in college football that year. And that, to me, is the parallel. 2021, when these 2 teams played, and Bryce Young upset undefeated Georgia and the greatest defense in 45 years. They were the best 2 teams that eventually went back and played each other in the championship game. They were the best 2 teams probably in 2018, to be honest with you. Maybe Clemson had an argument there. But I think what's interesting is I agree with if I was doing the rankings, I think Georgia and Michigan are on the top tier. But I think Alabama and Texas are the 2 most underrated teams in the rankings. I think the committee is doing Texas and Alabama a disservice by where they're putting them. Washington is one of the worst defenses of this group. Florida State has lost its star quarterback, and Ohio State's offense is, a little slower and less explosive than people think. They haven't, and frankly, my biggest issue with Alabama is their fucking resume is really good. Like, they have really good wins over Ole Miss, Tennessee. They have good wins over top 20 teams that other teams ahead of them do not have. Oregon, I like Oregon a lot. Oregon does not have a better resume than Alabama. They do not have a better resume than Texas. They do not have it.
My thing is, we've seen teams like Washington get into the college football playoffs before, and in fact, Washington has gotten into the college football playoffs before and get smoked because they don't know how to play defense. Like, to me, it's all about, when I think of the best 4 teams, because you've kind of adjusted my thinking on how the committee views it and everything. And I'll let you tell everybody how the committee really views it versus how fans view it. But it's like, who are the most complete teams and what's their one loss look like, right? Like, and I agree with you. I think Texas being 7 and Alabama being 8 is a total disservice to them. Both of them, actually.
Yep.
But if let's say it comes down to it, Alabama wins, Texas wins, Washington wins, and Florida State wins, you just got a bunch of chaos right there, right? I think that Alabama should be, if Alabama wins the SEC championship, I think that is a bigger deal and harder to do than what anybody else has done. And it's another big time, big boy win added to an already big time, big boy resume.
It would be the best win of the season by any team.
By any team.
Team.
I first let's get into this because we got plenty of time actually talking.
Wait. Let me tell Stoney. New Mexico State, Jerry Kill, the Aggies plus the 10.5. Take it. There you go. There's your breakdown.
So I want to ask you, first off, is tell the people how the committee views teams.
So they have every, like, all the stuff that you talk about with the Titans, right? Like all the metrics, all the analytics, all the advanced data, everything. They have every single piece of film and every single piece of data supplied to them by a particular analytics company. So every member of the committee has every piece of possible data, information, game tape they could ever possibly need to evaluate every team. They have watched every game that every team has played. So at the end of the season, all these complaints about rankings and teams and preseason polls, like, they don't matter. All that matters is what you are at the end of the season after every game has been played. What they do not, what they say, and I don't know how every brain works inside a 13-person committee, but what they say and their charge is to put the 4 best teams. It's not the 4 best resumes. It's not the 4 best eye tests. It's not the 4 best rosters. It's the 4 best teams. So there's a little bit of eye of the beholder inside of that, but they have every possible way to analyze every team at their fingertips, and they do. They say conference championship should not be a metric, like one of the most top priority metrics. They say head-to-head should not be one of the top priority metrics unless 2 teams are identical in their eyes. So if they see Texas and Alabama as 12-1 conference champions, and they look at their resumes and they say these resumes and these eye tests and these metrics are all pretty much the same, they are going to go to Texas and use the head-to-head as a tiebreaker. That they use head-to-head as a tiebreaker. I'm okay with that. I am not okay with conference championship being the tiebreaker. I think that's stupid. Conference championship is based on geography. Why would we decide who gets into the playoff and who's better based on geography? That's stupid to me. Alabama doesn't play the Pac-12 schedule. Washington and Oregon are on the West Coast. They don't play the East Coast. Like, it's stupid. The sport is organized geographically. That's not a way.
Soon, though.
It's gonna be close. Yeah, it's gonna be soon. So I like, if I am that's how the committee is supposed to look at stuff. What I see in their rankings so far, and all this is a guess, it feels like an old school view of the sport, which is that the undefeated teams are automatically better than the 1-loss teams. And I think that's a really old way of looking at football. I think that's an old 1990s way, pre-BCS way of evaluating college football. We have established that the 0 is not automatically better than the 1. Strength of schedule, where you played people, who you played people, what time of year did you play people, like all of that stuff should be included in the analysis, which is why I think Alabama is probably boxed out unless Texas loses, in which case the resumes are not the same, in which case the head-to-head is thrown out the window. So if Texas loses, Alabama can get in.
So let me ask you this. So you think that they're 11-1, and if they both win, even though and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, you think that Alabama is the better team. And earlier I thought in a tweet with Mike, because he had asked a question about, like, can someone explain to me? You explained why Alabama would get in over Texas.
He was talking about Georgia. I think he was talking about Georgia.
Oh, well, I thought he was talking about Alabama.
He was talking about
12 no, you're right. You're right. I apologize.
12-1 Georgia.
He was talking about Georgia. So are you saying that because basically that's how you view that the committee is viewing it based on their rankings right now? Or is that how you feel? Like, do you really feel Texas is more deserving than Alabama?
So Texas is interesting to me because they're one of the only teams in the country that I think matches up. And I don't mean like in a game. I mean like through all of the stuff, the metrics, the strength of schedule, the resume, the wins, the losses, how they've played, the talent. And I probably look a little bit more into the roster itself and go like, Texas's defensive line is elite. They have 2 of the best defensive tackles in the country. That is an elite defensive line. That makes them better than Washington, who has 127th against the run. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that is part of the analysis that I would do. I would look at Texas and I'd go, that defensive line makes them a better football team, which is partly why I like Alabama, because their defense is so much better. It's also why I think Ohio State has a good case, because Ohio State's got good wins. Their only loss is 6 points on the road to number 2, and they have an elite defense. I like teams with elite defenses. So I think they're better than teams like Washington, who just keeps winning. Again, I know that they keep winning, but they're winning close games, and like their again, I think they're like 127th EPA against the run. That's terrible. It's terrible. So part of why I think Georgia should. This is so fucking hard to do because this is the last year we're doing this with 4 teams, and it is going to be the most controversial vote on Sunday that we've ever had. Because unless Texas loses, Alabama loses, and Florida State loses, it's going to be super complicated, and somebody's going to get pissed off. So this is the closest and most balanced I've ever seen the top 8 going into the championship weekend.
So let me ask you this. So is there a scenario that if Alabama and Texas both win, what scenario would have to happen, do you think, for them both to get in?
So number 1, Florida State has to lose to Louisville for all of this stuff to happen.
Okay.
The Pac-12 winner is almost all but assured a spot, honestly. And if that's Washington, probably even more likely. If it's Oregon, I assume they get in. Texas would have to lose because that clears a path for Alabama. So even then, what would have to happen is you'd have to have I would vote for 12-1 Georgia or 12-1 Bama over like 13-0 Washington or 13-0 Florida State, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Michigan would move to. So let's say Georgia loses to Bama, Michigan moves to number 1. The Pac-12 champion probably moves to number 2, and then you got 2 slots, right? That's where you could, in theory, see it go Alabama 3, Georgia 4. They would have to both jump Ohio. Bama would have to jump Ohio State, which I think would be fair. As a 12-1 SEC champ with a win over Georgia, I think they'd be more deserving. They have a better resume than Ohio State. I see you, DP, in the comments saying Ohio State's got the best resume, but Ohio State's win over Notre Dame and Penn State are good. Alabama crushed number 11 Ole Miss, crushed Tennessee in the second half, a top 25 team, beat LSU by multiple touchdowns, a top 15 team with a Heisman probably winning quarterback, and then a win over Georgia. No chance that Ohio State's got a better resume than that. So I would assume Bama would have to jump then. So then it's you have to have Texas and Florida State lose. There's no other way that this works without those 2 things happening. That has to happen. So
I just wonder if there's a way for both Alabama and Texas to get in.
Same. Then I think the debate is Texas versus. See, I don't know. Because Alabama has to win to be in the conversation. But then I don't see how Georgia gets left out, which is Mike's question. Mike Herndon, Texas Longhorn homer, is ultimately out there campaigning for Texas to be ahead of preemptively a team like Georgia at 12-1. If 12-1 Georgia loses to Alabama, his argument is we're conference champs. We beat Alabama. You didn't. We belong in. Our resume's a little bit better. I don't think they're a better football team, though. So, and I don't think their resume is significantly better enough. I think 12-1 Georgia probably still gets in. Look at last year. TCU lost in the conference championship game and still got in. So there's precedent for teams losing at 12-0 and then still getting in. So if Alabama wins,
Alabama and Georgia both make it into the college football playoffs and the championships and all that kind of stuff. I'll say this: Andrew Cooper says Bama slogged it out versus USF, but this is where the teams look at, or the committee looks at, who was playing quarterback. They actively benched or punished Jalen Milroe and were playing Ty Simpson and what the fuck is that other quarterback's name?
Tyler Buckner.
Yeah, Tyler Buckner. Like, they weren't playing with Jalen Milroe. That would have been an entirely different game with Jalen Milroe at quarterback.
And again, Georgia struggled on the road against Auburn, Ohio State. Like, everybody Florida State almost lost to Boston College early in the year. Like, every team has. Texas almost lost to Houston. There's not, like, every team has sort of some bad weekends. Like, it just happens. I think had Alabama not had Auburn and Hugh Freeze not fucked up the last play, this would all be much easier. Like, I guarantee the committee was rooting for Auburn to get a stop on 4th and 31 because it would make this entire thing much easier if Alabama was not involved. I do think the committee they are eliminating Alabama in their minds, and I think that's unfair by putting them at number 8. They're basically saying, like, you kind of have to dominate Georgia, and then a whole lot of other stuff has to happen for you to get in. and for a 12-1 Alabama SEC champion to get left out, people will lose their shit if that happens, because it would be stupid, in my opinion. But I don't know how you take out an undefeated. It's going to be chaos.
So you got to root for, essentially, if you're a fan of the really good teams, like the quality teams that they are right now, like teams that are complete on offense and defense. You want Michigan, right? You want Michigan to be in there. If you're a fan of good, like, offensive, defensive teams, like balanced teams that have good defenses, you want Michigan in. So you want Michigan to win, right?
If you want the best football teams in the playoff, you want Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, not Washington, not Florida State, and then you want either Texas or Alabama.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Is like, that's what you want. You want Oregon to win, you want Louisville to win, and you want Michigan to win. Like, you want those three.
Bingo.
Right there.
Bingo. And because, again, I would have Florida State, and this is not fair to Florida State because it's been predicated on an injury to the quarterback. But they are not the same team without Jordan Travis. And without the best, one of the best players in college football not running your offense, you're not that team anymore. So that's a complicated. It sucks. It sucks that Jordan Travis isn't healthy. That sucks. But if you ask me, out of the top 8, which I think is pretty clear, the teams we're all discussing here, I think Washington and Florida State are the worst two. I would have them at 7 and 8 in my rankings, and that's because I don't think the 0 automatically makes you better than. I think Texas would line up and beat Washington. I would pick Texas 10 out of 10 times against Washington.
Oh, wow.
I would pick Texas 7 out of 10 times against Florida State without Jordan Travis. Maybe 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. I would pick Bama over both of them 8 or 9 out of 10 times. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you kind of have to have logic in this. And the teams with the great defensive lines and the elite coaches and the great quarterbacks, like Texas and Alabama, belong in the playoff if they both win, in my opinion. Is that going to happen? Probably not, because I don't think there's enough spots. I don't think there's enough spots to go around. I think there's one team that's going to get real pissed. And that doesn't even include Ohio State or a one-loss Washington.
Okay, so
all right,
Oregon is favored 9.5. Are you taking the 9.5? Or are you taking Washington?
I logged onto the app to gamble on Oregon like right away as soon as they clinched their spot in the Pac-12 title game when they beat Oregon State. And I was like, I'm going to take Oregon like -4, -5, whatever. And I opened it up and it was like Oregon -9. I was like, holy shit. I've always thought Oregon was the better team than Washington. But I would not touch that number. I will take Oregon to win on the money line for sure, but that's not a good.
Okay, so we got 15.5 in favor of Texas. So you can take the money line or the points. Texas and Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State's not good enough to beat that team, I don't think, but 15.5 is a whole lot in a championship game. Mike Gundy will have something for him. Keep an eye on Ollie Gordon. He's going to run the football against that Texas defensive line. If Texas's defensive line plays normal football and stops Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State has no chance. Yeah, I wouldn't gamble on that one.
We know where you're falling. Georgia and Alabama is now at -5.5 according to ESPN. So it was 6.5 on FanDuel. So Georgia -5.5. Are you taking
Bama?
We know what you took on the point wise. Who are you taking on the money line?
I mean, the value is Alabama. The value on the money line is Alabama. I would take Bama. Like, I would go for it. I think it's going to be maybe I'm trying to will it into existence. I think it is going to be a spectacular.
I appreciate that.
I think it is going to be a spectacular football game. And if I lose $10 or whatever because Georgia eventually wins on a field goal in the last second, that'll be the best $10 I've ever spent in my life. Like, give me a great game over winning a bet any day of the week, because I don't put $50, $100 downs. I put a beer down. It's beer money for me. So
Iowa and Michigan.
Next game.
22.5. Next game, you think it's
do you know what the point? Do you know what the first half point total is for Iowa?
Like 7?
0.5.
They don't even think Iowa will score a field goal?
0.5. 0.5 is the first
Sounds
half
like
over
easy
under.
Money. Bet it all.
I would, I'd take the under. Michigan -22. Michigan -22 all day.
Okay. Louisville and Florida State, 2.5 in favor of Florida State. I think Louisville could do the upset.
This is a much better. Louisville is a much better football team than Florida, who Florida State just played last week. Yeah. Florida just played him last week. Tate Rodemaker's he's had some experience. He's the backup quarterback for Florida State. This is a very well coached Louisville team. Jawar Jordan, an elite running back. They are pretty darn good on defense. This is a much better team than the Florida Gators that Florida State just played last week. I kind of like Louisville outright, which is good for the college football playoff, I think, because I don't think Washington or Florida State being in the playoff is best for the game. I don't think it is. I think those are the two weakest teams. So
it'll be interesting. This is a really good slate of championship games outside of like Iowa, Michigan, but that could actually end up being pretty good because no Harbaugh's there.
Tulane, I would lay the points 3.5. That's the other one I've got. I've got money on New Mexico State, Tulane, and Alabama. Those are my 3 bets this weekend. The Mountain West championship game, UNLV and Boise, is awesome. Oregon, Washington is going to be good. Alabama, Georgia should be good. Louisville, Florida State should be good. Tulane and SMU should be really good. Like Texas and Michigan should blow those 2 guys out. I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma State kind of keeps it close. But
yeah,
there should be a really good slate of games on Saturday. This should be great. And Sunday should be an absolute shit show. I can't wait. We'll have a live reaction, of course, at like 11:15ish when the rankings come out. We'll have some live stuff for you on the network, so make sure you stay tuned. It's going to be 2 teams could be very pissed off. Can you imagine Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama getting left out of the playoff?
Hey, that makes for an intriguing like Rose Bowl or whatever the secondary bowls outside of that. It'll be some really. This may be the best bowl game season that we've seen in a while.
I have a tough time getting hyped up for bowl games. Nobody play. People get in the portal. Quarterbacks sit out. Players don't play hard. I don't know. It's just I have a tough time with that. This is why we need a 12-team playoff and why it's coming next year. I also like Troy minus the 6 in the Sun Belt Championship game as well. I agree. John Summerall, future Kentucky head football coach, will win back-to-back Sun Belt championships. So I'm with you on that one. There, Stoney. And Derek, I'm not sure what I said. Washington's very good, but defensively, they're not as good as the other teams in this list we're talking about, and they keep winning on last-second field goals. Eventually, that catches up to you. So I think Oregon wins this weekend. So
just
there you go.
The Lions, who did that 2 weeks in a row, then lost to Green Bay on.
There you go. There you go. Okay, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for hanging out. Rate, review, subscribe. Sinkers Beverages, the Kingston Group, Stack in the Inbox, Football and Other F Words. You guys know the drill. Thank you for giving us the support and hanging out with us. We do agree. Stoney, last moment here, and as a voter, I can't tell you who I'm voting for. If you have voted for a Heisman already, you did it wrong. You shouldn't have a vote. You got to wait till all the games have been played. We have to fill out our ballots on Sunday. I think Jaden Daniels has it right now. I think he's the winner right now. I don't think Michael Penix can win it with a big game against Oregon. I do think Bo Nix will win it if he has a huge game against Washington and puts them on his shoulders. His throws are elite. He has been as good a thrower as he's been a better thrower than Jaden Daniels this year. Jaden Daniels has the legs, but Bo Nix is 79% completion percentage, and they're not swing passes. They are down the field, back foot, in between the safety and the linebacker. Go watch Bo Nix throw the football. They are elite throws. And if he beats Washington this weekend, I think there's a chance he could win it if he does something big. Look at his numbers. Bo Nix's numbers are sick. Go look at his numbers.
I've seen someone put up the numbers side by side, and Jaden Daniels wins a lot of categories on that.
If you add, he's over 1,000 yards rushing. So Bo Nix has the same amount of touchdowns, fewer interceptions, better completion percentage, more yards per game passing. All of his passing numbers are better than Jaden Daniels. The rushing, though?
I don't think that's right, but maybe that person was wrong who made that list.
The rushing numbers is what gives Jaden Daniels the big edge. He's got 1,100 yards rushing, which is nuts for a quarterback. So there we go. Okay. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, everybody. Jason, I think the Pac-12 is pretty good. They're very good. They were sneaky good, and they were still sneaky good. I just don't think Washington's better than Texas. That's okay. It's okay to say that. All right. Thank you guys for listening. For Zach, I'm Braden. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday.